You're on mute, Rabbi.
We'll try again. Welcome back to the Daily Living Jewish Kitzur Shulchan Aruch class. We are up to section 73. In the midst of 73 on the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, we have begun to learn the laws of Shabbos. In section 72, we spoke about the importance of keeping Shabbos and the effect of the lack thereof. And we spoke about preparing for Shabbos, getting ready already from the beginning of the week with delicious foods, any good food, put it aside for Shabbos. And then we spoke about all of the preparations that we make to make Shabbos all that special. Now that said, part of keeping Shabbos is not just ensuring that we don't work on Shabbos, but ensuring that we don't have others work for us either. Certainly not a Jew. So typically when somebody becomes religious or they start keeping Shabbos or they have a family member that's not there yet, so classically the family member will say, I'll do it for you. You need a light, I'll turn on the light. But we know that's not an option. Anybody that has begun to keep Shabbos will know that to get another Jew to do it for you is certainly no solution. But not only can't you get another Jew to do it for you, but you're not even allowed to get another non-Jew to do it for you. Unless it's in a very specific setup, unless he's actually not doing it for you, rather he's actually doing it for him. He's doing it for himself, and you're just benefiting. Not just that he's doing it for you and you're benefiting, he's actually doing it for himself and you're benefiting. That's what we spoke about most recently. Yesterday we spoke about, well, the last time we learned, we spoke about the difference between a... One moment, please. The difference between a day worker and a contractor. A day worker, if you tell a guy that I'm going to give you whatever it is, I'll give you 1,000 rand a day, and whatever the amount is, and you don't tell him which days to come, you just make up a price. Let's say it's a painter, and you tell him that, look, I'd like you to do a whole lot of paint stuff around my house. For every day that you paint, I'll pay you 100 rand. And he shows up on Shabbos morning. Now, he could have come on Friday and he could have come on Sunday, but he chose Shabbos because that's the day that works for him. So can you open the gate and let him go and do whatever it is? The answer is no. Why? Since you're paying him for his time, it means that the moment he starts doing something that you can't do on Shabbos, he's doing it for you. Although he wants to make the money, it's still him doing it for you. So he is doing it for himself, but the fact that you made up an arrangement that you're going to pay him for his time, it means that he's your agent and you'd have to say, unfortunately, you need to come back another day, even if it's to his detriment. That is if it's his day worker. If it's a contractor, on the other hand, then he actually is working for himself and it's not a problem, as long as a couple of conditions are met. So that means, practically speaking, if you give your suit into the dry cleaner and he decides that he wants to do it on Shabbos, that's not a problem, because you're paying him for the job, you're not paying him for his time. And when he actually dry cleans your suit, he's actually not considered your agent. He's working entirely for himself. At no point does he become your worker. You're not paying him for his time. Rather, he is charging you for his service. And he could do his service whenever he'd like, even though he's working on your suit. That's not a problem. That's the general important difference between a day worker, which is not allowed on Shabbos, like a gardener, and a contractor, which is allowed on Shabbos. Now, when you talk about gardening, you can actually have two types of arrangements. You can either have a gardener, that's your day worker, he comes however many times a month or week, or you can have actually a gardening service. Gardening service, you're not paying them for their time. I don't know, I haven't used one, but I imagine you're not paying them for their time, rather you're paying them for their service. They come, they see what your garden needs, they give you a quote, and they say that they will ensure that this job gets done for whatever the cost is. Now, if it takes them 10 hours or takes them 5 minutes, doesn't make a difference to you because you're not paying them for their time. They're not working for you. They're working for themselves. They're offering a product and you're just benefiting from it. So based on that, a gardening service would be allowed to come and do your garden on Shabbos. However, we have an important principle called Maris Ayin, which we've discussed in other contexts as well. Maris Ayin is what appears to the eye. That's making people think that you're doing the wrong thing when you're not. What's the problem if people think you're doing the wrong thing? What is this? Who cares what I think? That's not my problem. That's their problem. No. Judaism, we never say that's their problem. It's not my problem. Such words don't exist in our vocabulary. Kol Yisrael Alev Zelazeh. We're all guarantors for each other. And we're not just here to make sure that we're okay. We're here to make sure somebody else is okay. And if another Jew is either going to think that it's okay, because if the rabbi did it, I could do it too. So if the rabbi had somebody working on his garden, then I could also get my gardener as well. The guy doesn't know the difference. He doesn't know that it's a gardening service, and that's fine. And for him, it's a gardener that's not fine. Really, a gardening service is not fine, as we'll discuss in a moment. Or even if he knows it's not allowed and he just thinks that I'm sinning. So that's not my problem. He knows I've made it clear what's allowed and not allowed, and he thinks I'm doing the wrong thing. His problem is never not my problem in Judaism. I don't want to cause somebody else to think that I'm doing the wrong thing. And therefore, if what I'm doing is going to be confused by people as something that is forbidden, then I'm not allowed to do it. And so therefore, not only wouldn't you be able to get a gardener, but you wouldn't even be able to get a gardening service, because even though they're working for themselves, since it's on your property, people will think that you might be paying them for their time, and then that's a problem. The only time it wouldn't be a problem would be if everybody in that town, if nobody has gardeners that they pay for. A different example, if it's a type of job that is only done by contract and is never done by hour, so then we're not worried about what people will think in that place, then it wouldn't be a problem. There are other alternative scenarios where it might be better, and that would be if it was, let's say, in your company, in an industrial zone where no Jews live in walking distance, so then you're not concerned that they might walk past and think that you've hired somebody to do work for you on Shabbos, then also that would be allowed. But the key question we need to ask ourselves is, already the most important lesson is that the concept of a Shabbos guy is for a very limited context, and for all practical purposes, generally we don't get a non-Jew to do anything for us on Shabbos, but certain things are allowed, and you could just check on a case-by-case basis because there are quite a few conditions to be met. Maybe we'll quickly skim through them to the best of our abilities. So what did we say? Running through the numbers. Number one, non-Jew must take the article from the house of the Jew before Shabbos begins. Number two, by the way, this also has quite a role when it comes to mailing stuff in and out, because often that could happen on Shabbos. The wages of the non-Jew should be set in advance, so that he's doing it for himself. Number three, the wage should be established for the entire job. Again, so he's doing it for himself. Number four, it is forbidden to stipulate with the non-Jew that he needs to do the work on Shabbos. So even if it is a private contractor, you wouldn't be allowed to tell the dry cleaner that you want him to dry clean your suit on Shabbos, even though he's not Jewish. Not only can't you tell him to do it on Shabbos, you wouldn't be allowed to drop it off before Shabbos and tell him that you need it done by the end of Shabbos. You can't give it to him in a way that as a result of what you've asked him to do, it's going to require him to do it on Shabbos. They say, therefore, it's better not to live in a town where the market day is only on Shabbos, because it's going to be very hard to be able to get what you need without breaking Shabbos. It'll probably be quite complicated to set something up that's done in a kosher way. So those are those few conditions. Number five. The work should not be connected to the soil. As we said, the moment it has to do with soil, then people will think that he's a day worker. But there are, in certain scenarios, leniencies for these things, and you would be able to check with the rabbi based on the scenario. Speaks about a whole arrangement of a sharecropper where a person gets a certain percentage of the crops for himself. But most of us are not farmers, so we'll leave it at that for now. So much so that if a non-Jew built a house for a Jew on Shabbos, This is a tough one. I think we may have touched upon this already in the last class. So that means it was done in violation. Somebody actually, even if it was a contract, but we said contracts on property are a problem because people might think that you're paying them for their time. So if a property was done for non-Jewish Shabbos, you actually wouldn't be allowed to move into that home. You wouldn't be allowed to benefit from it because we don't want to utilize something that came about in an illegal way, just like you wouldn't want to use funds that came about to do fraudulent activity, corruption. We don't want to use spiritual products that were spiritually brought about through fraudulent activity. Let's just take a look at this note. So yeah, there's a difference between whether he actually clearly asked the non-Jew to work for him on Shabbos as a day worker, or if it was a contract. If it was a contract, so then the problem was only maris ayin, what people will think. And we say generally for maris ayin, when a person violated the prohibition of doing something that people will think is sinful, then after the fact you would be allowed to benefit. But even there, he says some people would rather not use such an item. But this really tells us of the strictness of the matter. If we say that even after the house is built, you wouldn't want to walk into such a home that was built in a forbidden way, it really sharpens our senses to understand the importance of wanting to keep Shabbos in the best way that we possibly can. Thank you so much. Wishing you a wonderful evening.